إن الحمد لله نحمده سبحانه ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Tonight inshallah ta'ala we speak about a nation. This nation hasn't perished. It's the nation of Houston, Texas. And we were once there in the museum in Houston near like NASA and so on. And there is, in the museum, as you're walking through the museum, there's this boom sound in the museum. And people from Houston are going to listen to this inshallah ta'ala. They probably know what I'm talking about. This museum has a section to it that is related to oil. And related to, if you think about it, how does someone dig into the sea, right? How does someone, you don't see scuba divers with shovels and going like this. That's not how they dig into the sea. And as you're walking, boom, the sound, you hear it again. So I'm walking through in a dark section, and then I hear this, boom. And the glass even is shaking. I turned around, and there is an exhibit that is full of water. And what the exhibit is explaining is how they dig under the ground. What do they use to dig under the ground? They use sound waves. They use sound waves. And my technical language might not be perfect exactly, but basically what happens is what they're explaining and what's shaking the museum is just a little bit of the power of the sound that goes into the ground, and they are able to dig very deep into the sea because of the sound that moves forward. And so it's an example of the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed even in the sound. In the sound, because in the wind, the air, all of these things, the sound itself, the sound has the power to destroy all of us. It can destroy it. Just like an airplane will fly at a very low level, the extreme sound will smash all the windows, correct? Intensify the sound, and it would destroy you. It would destroy you just from the sound. And that's where we begin today, inshallah ta'ala. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we are going to be speaking about the people of Thaamud. The people of Thaamud. Last week, we spoke about the people of Ad, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His slave Hud alayhi salam, Prophet Hud alayhi salam, to them. Tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to speak about Thaamud, of whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His slave Salih alayhi salam. Prophet Salih alayhi salam. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in Surah Al-Shams, كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا إِذِ انبَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها. This is a surah that many of us have memorized. And as a young child, throughout your whole life, you will be reading about the example of Thaamud. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to them Salih alayhi salam. The people of Thaamud, they were Arabs. They were Arabs, and they lived actually near to Tabuk. If you're familiar with like the Hijaz area, you have Medina. North from Medina is 7 hours north by car is Tabuk. And in that area is in the area where Thaamud used to live. And that area till today is called and known as Mada'in Salih. It's known as Mada'in Salih, meaning the dwellings of Salih. And so these people of Thaamud, what they used to do is they used to carve homes out of the mountains. And we spoke last week about the people of Petra, Al-Batra, which is in Jordan. And we said that Thaamud was actually an offshoot of those people. Right? And those people in Petra, for those who have been to Petra, you'll notice that they've built castles into the mountains. A castle by even today's standard. If you saw a castle like this today, you would say, what an amazing castle. And these are castles that were built thousands of years ago, and they're carved from the mountain. They're carved from the mountain. The people of Thaamud were like this. This is what they did. As the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ. He said, and you carve from the mountains, buyutan, homes, aminin, full of safety. Now when you think about it, right, when you build a house of wood, it can burn down. You build a house of, you name all these different things. How can you destroy a mountain? How can you destroy a mountain? And so the people of Thaamud, their skill was that they would build homes into the mountain, right? And it's just not just a cave. It's not a cave. It's an actual castle that's built into the mountains. Last week, there's a question one of the brothers mentioned, and I told them, remind me, so we'll bring it up in this weekend, this week, inshallah ta'ala as well. And that is, we're talking about the lessons of how people were destroyed, correct? So the question might come, well, how is a nation saved? How is a nation saved? What does a nation have to do in order to be protected from the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to win Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love? And the answer, subhanAllah, is so simple. It's so simple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِلَى ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُمْ مِنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. That's the answer. If you go back to the beginning of all these stories, the message that perhaps gets lost as we're explaining it is the secret to their salvation. It's a secret to how they could have prospered, how they could have became such an amazing nation as the Ansar were. Correct? What did the Ansar do differently than the other Arab? What did they do differently? They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they worshipped Allah azza wa jal alone. And what did the people of Thaamud do wrong? Step number one, they worshipped other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what they did is they attributed all these gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to their idols. To their idols. And so just like the people of Ad were worshippers of idols, same were the people of Thaamud, worshippers of idols. We said about Ad that they were extremely intelligent and extremely skillful, yet shaitan was able to deceive them when it came to their connection between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And similarly, the people of Thaamud, were they intelligent? In the dunya sense, they were intelligent, right? They had their fancy degrees and their PhDs in this and carving in mountains. They're obviously extremely successful in their intelligence and their skill. But when it came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were the most ignorant of creation. They were the most ignorant of creation. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Salih alayhi salam, as we said that these lectures, we're not necessarily focusing on the stories of the prophets, but what we're instead focusing on is the guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about these nations and what led them to their destruction. This is what their focus is on. But just summarizing what happened, Salih alayhi salam came to these people, told them to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, told them to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings upon them, which as we said is a critical point of the da'wah of all messengers. The da'wah of any da'i is to remind people to remember Allah's blessing upon them. Otherwise it will be taken away from them. Because what they have is not from their own hands. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so as they say, it behooves the person to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the gift before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes it away from them. And so Salih alayhi salam would call them to Allah azza wa jal and argue with them and debate with them. And so they became fed up. And so one day what they said to Salih alayhi salam, they said, you see this mountain? We want you to carve a camel out of the mountain. A live camel. Not a castle. Not a castle. We want you to carve a she-camel out of the mountain that is alive and is pregnant. And it's huge. They described it has to be a camel like this, a camel like this, a camel like this, a camel like this. And so Salih alayhi salam said, if I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He blesses you with this sign, will you believe? Will you believe? And they promised and they said, yes, bring it. Obviously, it's a mockery that they're, and what their true intentions are. Allahu A'lam. And so Salih alayhi salam, he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asked Allah Azza wa Jal to show them the sign. And so carved from the mountain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought forth a she-camel, Naqatullah. The she-camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you say something like Baytullah, the house of Allah, what are we talking about? The Kaaba. When you say Kitabullah, the book of Allah, what are we talking about? The Quran. And so again and again throughout the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls this camel Naqatullah, the camel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the sign that Salih alayhi salam was given to show to the people. And so some of the people believed in Salih. The Quran does mention that there were people from the people of Thaamud who did believe in Salih alayhi salam. But the majority of them, they disbelieved in Salih even though the camel had been brought. And so the condition was that the camel was not to be harmed in any way. That this is Naqatullah and that they should not harm the camel. And that the camel would drink one day from the water and they would drink the other day. This is such an enormous camel and such a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It would drink the water of the entire people of Thaamud. And it had its whole day for drinking. And the day when they weren't drinking from the water, they were actually drinking from the milk of this camel. Enough milk to give to the entire tribe of Thaamud. And how many people are we speaking about? This is the tribe of Thaamud and this is Naqatullah. It was pregnant. The camel, it's a she-camel and it was pregnant and it gave birth to its, as they say, fasil. It gave birth to its baby she-camel. And the story continues. This situation with the people of Thaamud, what I'm going to do is explain to you the different things about Thaamud. In the beginning of the da'wah, Salih alayhi salam says to the people of Thaamud, Ya qawmi abudullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayru. Worship Allah, you have no God except Allah. You have nothing to worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Salih alayhi salam reminds them of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing upon them, that perhaps they would be thankful to Allah Azza wa Jal indeed in their deeds. That they would say, subhanAllah, this gift is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let us worship Allah Azza wa Jal. Salih alayhi salam says to them, as recorded in the Quran, هُوَ أَنشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُم فِيهَا هُوَ أَنشَأَكُم مِّنَ الْأَرْضِ وَاسْتَعْمَرَكُم فِيهَا. Salih alayhi salam is saying that He's produced you from the earth and settled you therein. And in the other verse, وَتَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ, as we said, and you carve from the mountains, بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ, these mountains. Now these Mada'in Salih, and if you look at Petra, their construction of these castles is so strong that till today, you can go to Petra, you can go to Mada'in Salih, and it's still there. You're talking about, Allahu A'lam, how long it was, maybe, at least 2,000 years. It's still there, these structures. Now, I want you to understand this concept. I call it overcompensation. Overcompensation. Where there's this excessiveness in materialism. If you were to go to the shoe rack, you would go to the shoe rack, and I know some of you are going to actually try this. You go to the shoe rack after the lecture, and you see, and this usually is sometimes with the sister shoe rack for some reason. Maybe the brothers too, a little bit. But there's one shoe, two shoes that are beside each other. One of them has a high heel. And the heel is, you're talking about like 12 inches high, right? They call them platform shoes. The person's actually standing on a platform every time they put on their shoes. And then you see another pair of shoes that are flat on the ground. What do we understand from the person who has the high platform shoes? What do we understand from that? Someone want to tell me? What's the psychology behind it? Yes? What's the arrogance? No, not necessarily. Okay, so the brother said arrogance. Not necessarily that they're trying to be arrogant, inshallah ta'ala. It's okay. I have heels on my shoes too, so inshallah it's not a sign of arrogance. Okay, hold on. Yes? Okay, the person who has high heels is taller. Are you sure about that? Yes, yes. Okay, they're shorter. And not only are they short, but they're probably a little bit on the shorter side. Would you agree with that? And so the person actually gets, because there's something in their heart, maybe they feel, I'm not as tall as everybody. Let me get this thing called platform shoes so I can be a little bit taller. To give you another example of it, this is what's a person called overcompensating. Normally flat shoes, and this could still be someone who's shorter, but normally flat shoes, you would see the super tall basketball type of person, super tall. What kind of shoes does he like to wear? Skechers. They're flat on the ground, no heels. Correct? Those are like the kind of like the skateboarder type shoes. They're flat because these are the tall people. They're not looking for super high heels because they don't need to. They're tall, so it's not in their brain. There was someone who, he came into a village, and he's a very famous scholar, and everybody said he has 1,000 proofs for the existence of God. 1,000. He can prove in 1,000 different ways that God exists. And so one of the old women in the village, she heard this, and she understood this principle of high heels. She said, then he must have 1,000 doubts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this person heard that, and it hit him in the heart. Why do you need 1,000 proofs that Allah exists? Because there's some issue going on. There's some confusion. And so the person says, I can prove in 1,000 ways. Afillahi shak, is there any doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And what's interesting about Ad, the people we spoke about last week, you'll see, even though there was a sign, but it wasn't like the sign of Thaamud. It wasn't like the she-camel. And if you look at the prophets, they're not all coming with, like with Musa alayhi salam was the parting of the sea and so on. But these prophets, it's in their words, this message. There's no doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they know it. And when they disbelieve in the prophets, they're disbelieving straight from their minds, and their heart is saying to them that you're a liar. Their heart is saying you're a liar, and the person's like, even if I'm a liar, I'm still going to disbelieve in these prophets. As we will see with what happened with Thaamud. This issue of Thaamud, in fact, is they used to build buildings into the mountains. Do you think that if they were capable of building skyscrapers, do you think they would have done it? Do you think they would have done it? Okay, yes, so you have a different style where people overcompensate when it comes to their buildings. Where there's this huge focus. In the olden days, when you see a big building, it was usually built in the name of God. Christian, Muslim, Jews, you go anywhere and you see the big buildings, someone built it in the name of Allah, whether intention sincere or not. They're buildings built of there's religious basis to the big buildings. But then comes a time where we see big buildings, and what are they built under? For what name? In the name of whom? In the name of whom? In the name of the business that can pay the most money to put their name on this building. That's who they're built for. And so you will see, if you go into any city and you see huge structures, in whose name is this built? And they'll say, this is such and such corporation's building. And this building is such and such corporation's building. And this building is such and such corporation's building. And then you'll see smaller buildings, and then you'll say, that's church so-and-so, this is, masjid so-and-so. Times have changed, and people have turned more to the building of buildings in the name of corporations. And you can say almost that there's this infatuation and overcompensation for materialism. When a person builds this wealth, if you think about it, someone's, how much money do they want to make? They want to make, $1 billion. They want to become a billionaire. Okay, how in the world are they ever going to spend that money? How are they going to spend it? And if you notice the lifespan of a person, let's just say on average someone lives, I don't know, what's retirement age? Okay, so the person, the retirement age is 65, average person lives, I don't know, maybe like say 72, right? So you're looking at approximately 5 years after the person retires, they're dead. And that's the average. A lot of people die before that, a lot die. That's just in the middle there. So a person, they're aiming in life to live forever. That's what they're aiming for. As if they're going to live forever. If you can imagine that everything in your, like I'm going to work this, I'm going to save this, I'm going to do. Why is all this saving? And even when someone tells you don't rent, take out a riba mortgage. Why? Because 30 years from now, when you have 3 years left to live, you'll get a great deal. A great deal in the sight of whom? In the sight of whom? This focus on the last 4 years of your life. That all of your life is built for the last 3 years. In fact, that's not what the focus is on. The focus is on that we will live forever. That's what the focus is on. As if we will live forever. That is the amal. This is the desire of Bani Adam, that they will live forever. And you see Thaamud, you see the people of Petra, as if they will live forever, but in reality, it's just very short-lived. How quickly can your day of judgment start? In a heartbeat. Your heartbeat just says, stop. And that's it. And then your journey to the hereafter, it begins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so definitely these are lessons in the people of Thaamud for us to understand, because the way that they were engrossed in materialism and their focus that they would live forever, and they're building in the buildings in these mountains, lessons for us is that we will not live forever. And if we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same way the Ansar turned to Allah azza wa jalla and worshipped Him alone, that they're the ones who truly live forever. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another verse, actually, Bilal radiallahu anhu, a slave in Mecca, and there are many slaves. And Bilal radiallahu anhu believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah azza wa jalla raises him in rank above even the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who disbelieved in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Lahab. And so I remember this one time, I was at the Kaaba. I'm at the Kaaba, and someone told me that, you know what, if you go to the Kaaba, go and pray in the first line. Because if you're praying in the first line, that's the first line of the entire world. That's like a Saf al-Awwal in the whole Muslim world is at the Kaaba. Right? That's where the lines start, and you're in the first line. So I said, I got to pray in the first line, right? So I went and I sat there. You're talking about a couple of hours before Salah, and there's still no room, but you get inside. And then this Saudi brother came out. And the Saudi brother was dark-skinned. He was dark-skinned. And he came out with the microphone. And his thobe was very white, his clothes very clean. And he looked like he was going to say the adhan. Looked like he wasn't the mu'adhin. The mu'adhin is like from Bukhara or something like that. Right? He looked like he was going to say the adhan. So sitting beside me were some people from South Africa. When they saw this man come out and they saw the darkness of his skin, they got so happy. They got so happy. I'm talking about they freaked out. If they had cell phones with them, they would have called home. Now they would do that now because there's more cell phones now in Mecca and so on. They would have called. They were so happy, and they were telling their relatives that this person, and I heard them, they're speaking Urdu, and I don't speak Urdu very well, but they said, "Wo Bilal's family hai." They're saying that he's from the family of Bilal radiallahu anhu. Now I want you to understand just what's going on here. They're in like this ecstasy and of happiness because of their love for Bilal radiallahu anhu. And so they saw someone with a similar skin, and they thought that he's going to say the adhan, and they were so happy. They were so happy for this. What raised Bilal in status? It was his belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah azza wa jalla. So when you're talking about what protects a person so that they don't perish, it's exactly as all the prophets said, "U'budu Allah ma lakum min ilahin ghayru." Worship your Lord, you have no Lord except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then when you start thinking, well, why should I worship Allah azza wa jalla when I have this nice bed, when I have this nice car, when I have this nice job, and I have this nice money? Where did you get it from? Where did you get it from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to you. And so when it said U'budullah, and right in the hands, what does kafara mean? What does kafara mean? If you look in the Arabic, kafara is like to disbelieve, okay? And it has its terminology in Islam as someone who disbelieves in Allah and His Messenger, and so on, and all the details that you learn in the Aqidah class. But when you look at the Arabic literal word of kafara, it means to be ungrateful. A kafir is someone who's ungrateful. So you can say to someone linguistically, I'm not saying say this, it's haram, you don't go around telling people this, but if you said to someone, kafir ni'mah, ungrateful to the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Ungrateful to the blessings of Allah. And so the essence of their kufr is that they take the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they claim that it comes from other than Allah azza wa jal. And so what I would say to a person like your voice, when you were born, did your mother like take a voice box from Radio Shack or Best Buy Future Shop and stick it down your throat, attach the wires, read the manual? Is that what your mother did? Did your mother just take out eyeballs from her pockets and plop one into your skull, one left, one right? Is this what your mother did? Obviously not. And so with the tongue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the people, with the eyes that He gave them, they claim that this is from something other than Allah azza wa jal. And their kufr starts right first and foremost from their ungratefulness to Allah azza wa jal. These people of Thaamud, they thought that they would live forever. They were obviously wrong. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them, He wiped them out as if they never lived there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَأَن لَمْ يَغْنَوْا فِيهَا. It was as if they had never dwelt and flourished there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. And so the person thinks that I'm going to live forever, that's why I have to make millions and millions of dollars and billions of dollars and build buildings that cannot be destroyed for thousands of years. It'll only be just a few years and then you will be moving on to the hereafter. When the camel, the she-camel was brought to them, naqatullah, when they saw the sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they disbelieved in the sign. And inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to be, there's actually the story, and I wanted to speak about the camel before I go back to the story. When Salih alayhi salam brought to them the message, they said, when he said, "U'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruhu ansha'akum," all these verses that speak about what Salih alayhi salam said to them, they said in response, قالوا يا صالح قد كنت فينا مرجوا قبل هذا. They said to Salih alayhi salam, they said, قد كنت فينا مرجوا. Marju is like desired. Meaning that Salih alayhi salam was very wise, was very strong, was very handsome. He's from their people, أخوهم Salih, right? Their brother Salih. And they had high hopes for Salih alayhi salam. Meaning that he would have got a very high government position. He would be working for the government, lots of benefits, permanent job, all of that. He would have got a really good status. And they were saying, what a pity that you had to say this. Because, you had a great career, just drawing out for you. Why did you have to say this? Because now everybody's going to say that you're crazy. أَتَنْهَانَا أَن نَعْبُدَ مَا يَعْبُدُ آبَاؤُنَا. Are you telling us to worship that which, are you forbidding us from worshiping that which our fathers worship? Now I want you to understand something. How many people actually killed the camel? Killed naqatullah? How many people killed the camel? Okay, the number is 9. The number is 9. So you're taking notes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ تِسْعَةُ رَهْطٍ يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا يُصْلِحُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ, there was 9. تِسْعَةُ رَهْطٍ, there was 9 people. يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, they were doing fasad in the ard. وَلَا يُصْلِحُونَ. And actually not only that, and this is something just so you understand, is that when these people are not able, when the du'at of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the servants of Allah, when they are strong and they carry the message of Allah clearly, verbally, they've announced it and they've told the people, worship Allah, you have no Lord but Him, then you will find the kuffar, in the beginning they have misconceptions, doubts, and so on and so forth. What happens when they lose the argument? They resort to something else. They resort to terror. They resort to violence. The kuffar. And so they turned to imprisoning. They wanted to imprison Musa alayhi salam. And they turned to expelling. Same thing, Musa alayhi salam, they want to expel him from the land. They turned to detainment. They turned to killing the prophets, correct? And so not only did they kill Naqatullah, but a lot of people don't realize that after they killed Naqatullah, they attempted the next nights to kill Salih alayhi salam. قالوا تقاسموا بالله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قالوا تقاسموا بالله لنبيتنه وأهله ثم لنقولن لوليه ما شهدنا مهلك أهله وإنا لصادقون. They said, تقاسموا بالله, they promised, لنبيتنه, that we will kill him in the night. And they're not only killing Salih alayhi salam, they're going to kill his whole family. And so again, you understand that these people, they don't stop at the da'i to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will proceed to harm the family of the person who's calling to Allah azza wa jal. They will proceed to that. And this was their intention. And of course, Salih alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him before they could fulfill this. How many people were they? We said 9. When the 9 people came to kill the she-camel, came to kill Naqatullah, the 9 of them, there was only one of them who had the audacity to step forward and begin the killing of Naqatullah. So not only out of the whole tribe of Thaamud, there were 9 people who did the killing. And from these 9 people, even only one of them stepped forward and did the killing. The name of that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even mentions him in the Quran. إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا, the worst of them. The worst of all Thaamud. You're talking about one of the worst human beings to ever live. His name was Qidar ibn Salif. Qidar ibn Salif was Ashqaha, the worst of Thaamud, who went forward and killed and began the killing of Naqatullah. These 9 people, they did this. One of them, actually, Qidar ibn Salif, was the one who started it, and then they killed it. When they started killing the camel, when they started killing Naqatullah, they first cut off the tendons on the legs. They cut off the tendons. Once they started in the cutting and the spearing and the arrowing of the camel, this camel, Naqatullah, it cried out. It cried out. And the whole land was shaking from her cry. She was crying for her child, to warn her child of what they were doing. And as the books of Tariq and Tafsir, they'll say that this fasil, the baby camel, the child of the Naqatullah, it climbed up and ran away as they slaughtered the camel. And it climbed up to the top of the mountain and it cried out itself for the killing of its mother. It cried out 3 times. It called out, and the land was screaming. The camel was screaming as they slaughtered the camel and chopped it into pieces. And then the fasil, the child of the camel, went to the top of the mountain and called out 3 times. Now, Salih alayhi salam made a promise with the people of Thaamud. He said that Allah is bringing the sign, وَلَا تَمَسُّوهَا بِسُوءٍ, and do not touch it with any harm. And in the verses, فَيَأْخُذَكُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ, that a painful, an enormous, huge punishment will come upon you. And he's warning them. He said, don't touch, don't harm the camel, or this painful punishment will come. In another verse, عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ, a painful punishment. عَذَابٌ قَرِيبٌ in another ayah, that punishment that is so near. And they made the promise. The camel, the child of the Naqatullah, it was on the top of the mountain and called out 3 times. Salih alayhi salam said to his people, تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ. He said, enjoy yourselves in your places, in your dwellings, 3 days. ذَلِكَ وَعْدٌ غَيْرُ مَكْذُوبٍ. That this is a promise that has no lie in it. And Salih alayhi salam, the people who believed in Salih, they left. They were going to kill them, as we said, that they were going to kill Naqatullah. After they killed Naqatullah, they attempted to kill. As we said, this is the resorting. When they couldn't argue anymore, and they're stuck, there's nothing to say, they resort to violence and terror, and they attempted to kill Salih alayhi salam and his family. And the believers, those who believed in Salih alayhi salam, they left from the tribe of Thaamud. And now they had 3 days. And so they started partying. And they were mocking and ridiculing. And so on the first day, their faces became yellow. On the second day, their faces, and actually they would dress up and they would say, oh, the first day has passed. And they're like, oh, no punishment has come. Second day, their faces became red. And they said, oh, the punishment is coming. It's day 2, ha 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 ha. And then day 3 came and their faces turned black. And they said, it's day 3, where's the punishment of Allah? Where's the punishment? And they're laughing and they're mocking. So much so that they went to an exaggeration in their mocking, that they started wearing their kafan. They put on their shrouds, and they put the hanut. It's like, what you put on a dead body, in mockery. Like, it was like a party, like Halloween or something like this. That they're dressing up like the dead. And they said it's the 3rd day. And then at that 3rd day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down His punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنْبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنْبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الْحَاقَّةُ مَا الْحَاقَّةُ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحَاقَّةُ كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ وَعَادٌ بِالْقَارِعَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ وَعَادٌ بِالْقَارِعَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Thamud and Ad, they disbelieved and they claimed that it was a lie. When you say disbelieve, they're saying that the Qari'ah, the day of judgment, the horrible, when this shaking, the quake that's going to lead to the day of resurrection, they disbelieved in it. Meaning they said that it was a lie. It's not happening. كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ وَعَادٌ بِالْقَارِعَةِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِالطَّاغِيَةِ. And so as for the people of Thamud, they were destroyed, annihilated, بِالطَّاغِيَةِ. This is actually interesting. طَاغِيَةِ and قَارِعَةِ. I was like paying attention to these 2 words, the translations. The translation of the first one is, they disbelieved in the stunning calamity. In many verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the day of resurrection happening with Al-Qari'ah. The surah that you all have memorized, Al-Qari'ah, Mal-Qari'ah, wa ma adraka Mal-Qari'ah. It's one of the names of the day of judgment, when this stunning calamity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when that Qari'ah happens, you know how they say that the mountains will be turned into stone? They'll say when the mountains crumble to the sea. The mountains will not crumble to the sea when the Qari'ah happens. You know what will happen to the mountains? They will be turned into dust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ. You're talking about like cotton. It's nothing. Like a feather. That's what the Qari'ah is going to do to the mountains. And this is repeated again and again throughout the Quran, that when the Qari'ah happens, again, it's not something that's like a shaking. You're talking about when the Qari'ah happens, that's it. And now because Thamud disbelieved in the Qari'ah, they said it was a lie, it's not happening, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them with a taghiyah. And the translation is actually interesting. It says storm and lightning and so on and so forth. But that's not necessarily what a taghiyah says. Some of the scholars actually in fact have mentioned, and this is something that you realize later because at that time you couldn't understand what it is. The power of sound waves. The power of sound waves. In its ability to destroy. And in fact, military-wise, when you're talking about, the military and how they, they always have these different weapons that they're trying and this and that. Talk about their sound waves type of weapons, where they're trying to make weapons that destroy through sound waves. They can go through mountains and they can destroy things inside the mountains using the power of sound as a destructive force. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that when the taghiyah happened, they were destroyed. And you're talking a destruction that happens like instantaneously. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. Alright, how many people killed or gathered together to kill the camel? 9 people. When they started killing the camel, Naqatullah, what do you think the other people of Thamud started doing? Did they say, no, don't kill the camel? They didn't do that. What did they do instead? They started cheering. They became cheerleaders for the killing of the camel. And so with their pom-poms and their calling and this and that, the drum beats and the music playing all loud and like, go, go, go. All the people of Thamud, even though that they all did not all of them actually physically killed the camel, 9 of them gathered together out of the whole tribe of Thamud, and only one of them started the killing of the camel, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed all of Thamud. Why? Someone could say, I didn't kill the camel. It wasn't my fault. What was the sin of all of Thamud? They all disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what their punishment is coming from is that when the kufr happened, the disobedience to Allah Azza wa Jal, this breaking of the covenant with Allah Azza wa Jal, they were not against it. You can say that they were either silent observers or in their heart, there's nothing wrong with it in their hearts. That if they see the haram happening, it's no big deal. And this is something extremely dangerous for anybody to harbor in their hearts. This lack of indifference, just having indifference to the disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so actually when you see in one of the musibahs that our culture is engrossed in, is this musibah. Musibah means like calamity. Is this musibah of homosexuality. And so, sure, Muslims say, oh, astaghfirullah, don't want to talk about this and that. But when you see that the hearts don't shake and don't quiver at this disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you see another generation of people that, what's the big deal? That attitude leads a nation to perish. All of them. All of them. Because when a sin is hidden, that's something different. But when a sin is public, it's a totally different story. When it goes public, laws are made and enacted for the benefit of these things. And then on top of that, the hearts have they don't care about these. They're indifferent. They don't care. Then when the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, if the hands are not held back, not only do those people harm themselves, but they're harming the entire nation of people. All those who would listen but don't say anything in response. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this small group from the people of Salih, they were from Thamud, they were what is known as al-mala. Al-mala. How many of you have heard of that word before? Al-mala. Okay, so not many people know it, and so I want everybody to pay attention to this one. When I was preparing one of the seminars for the Al-Maghrib Institute, Fiqh al-Da'wah, Guiding to Allah by the Book, in this seminar, in my studies of the da'wah of the prophets and so on and so forth, there is a term that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses again and again and again with all these perished nations. And that is al-mala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, for example, in one of the verses, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مِن قَوْمِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not saying that Thamud said this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the mala of Thamud said this. Who are the mala? Okay, so this is what the mala are. All right, pay attention. If you got your pens, take note. The mala are the aristocrats. They are the, you can say, what we would say, the lobbyists, or the special interest groups. The few people, the secret clubs of people that run the whole show. This is the mala. They are the minority that runs the majority. The minority that runs the majority. If you have ants and a grasshopper, who is stronger, the grasshopper or the ant? Who is stronger? The grasshopper is stronger than the ant. Are you sure? Yeah, of course he is. The grasshopper can come and just punch the ant in the head and the ant is finished. Okay? But ants, for some miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they come in many huge numbers. There's many ants. If you had 1 billion ants and 10 grasshoppers, who is stronger? 1 billion ants. What could they do? 1 billion ants. The ants become stronger. The ants they have power. Yet at the end of the day, it will be the grasshoppers that rule. So you don't get a shirt that says grasshoppers rule. But this is the reality. The grasshoppers are the mala. The grasshoppers are the mala, and they always rule. They're always the one in charge. You can have a Muslim nation. The whole nation is Muslim. There's a couple of grasshoppers that run the whole show. And you know what I'm talking about. You can go from country to country to country to country to country to country, and just one person will say, what can we do? We're only ants. Correct? Isn't this the case? And many of you coming from different Muslim countries, so you're like, yeah, that's definitely it. You just got a few grasshoppers, and then you're like, how in the world did we elect this president? And then you're like, because you're ants. That's why. And he's a grasshopper, and the grasshoppers are just a little bit smarter than you. What you need to do is become a grasshopper. That's what you need to do. Or get in on the grasshopper, the grasshopper crew. The mala, these grasshoppers that run the show, in the people of Thaamud, there were 9 people. Just 9. And it caused the whole destruction of Thaamud. Right? They have ways in which they control the ants. They have ways in which they control the ants. So you can have a whole nation, 1 billion people, they can all be controlled with these techniques. And I will explain to you the techniques. And when they use the techniques on you, as they are already doing, they will still work. So you have to be paying attention. Number 1 is understanding what techniques are they using to keep you as an ant. Technique number 1 is called fear. Technique number 1 is called fear. What's the security alert right now? It's orange. Be scared. Be very scared. And even some of you getting scared right now when I say that. They're like, is this being recorded? Because it's like ant ideology, right? It's like, okay, scared, let's go to Home Depot and let's get some masking tape. Because, I'm scared. What if something happens and we need this masking tape? And then people start buying water, buying this and buying that and so on and so forth. And it's just games, right? They're like, oh, security alert. And when you have this thing called like, okay, let me stop that, right? Let me stop there. That's number 1. There was, any Libyans here? Libyans here? No Libyans? Yeah? Okay, cool. Remember back in the 80s when everybody was freaked out at the Libyans? Remember those days? Do you remember those? 1984, it was like Reagan and Gaddafi and all of that stuff. Are you guys still afraid of Libyans? When you see a Libyan, you go like, oh. We do that with Afghanis now. It's a little tangent right now, but we went for Hajj, and this guy came on our bus. There was 2 buses. We were coming from like the U.S. and for Hajj, and this guy came on the bus, and they were like, he's looking for a passport, and he goes like, Afghani, fin al-Afghani. Right? You know how those Saudi police guys, fin al-Afghani. And then one of the people on the bus, he got so scared, right? Like, and recall back the Libyan days again, right? Now it's the Afghani days. So he got so scared, he was like, they're looking for an Afghani. There's an Afghani amongst us. And then I said, brother, calm down. There is a masjid in our area that is predominantly Afghani, and they came for Hajj with us. The whole bus is Afghani. Every single person on that bus is Afghani. Right? He's just looking for some Afghani guy. They're all Afghani. Right? And so you just see, what I'm showing you there is, this is programming to the maximum. This is grasshopper propaganda to the maximum, where you're so scared in your heart that when they say you sit down, what do? I'm sitting, just don't call me an Afghani. Back in the Libyan days, like I say, it changes because now it's Afghani. If I say the Libyans, you're not scared because that power has dwindled. And the propaganda against the Libyans has gone down. They don't care about the Libyans now. Now they're trying to make up with them so they can do like free trade and stuff like that, the Lockerbie thing and so on and so forth. They're trying to make things calm. Back in the Libyan days, there's a brother who converted to Islam. He came into our masjid, and the people who founded our masjid, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them and give them increase of ajr for their whole life and for their children. They're the ones who used to come to the masjid, open the door, and even if there was nobody in the masjid, they would still pray in the masjid. In a day and a time, this was in Winnipeg, when the masjid was closed most of the day. It's just so cold and nobody would pray in the masjid, they would still come and pray. So when this brother became Muslim, who was giving him da'wah and helping him out? It was the Libyan brothers. The Libyan brothers. So his mother called him once, or he was talking to his mother once in the masjid. And I remember, I was a little kid at that time, his mother was crying like crazy on the phone. Why was she crying? Because he was in a basement with Libyans. She's like, they're going to kidnap you. She had pictures of seeing her son on some TV with a black eye and saying to the microphone, saying, please give them everything that they want. She saw her son like this because that's the connection to Libyans. That was the connection to Libyans. Are Libyans like that now? No, because the Mela chose to switch the scene. So now they've adopted this to a different group of people, and they continue to do this. This is not something new. You're talking about at the time of Saleh, the time of all the prophets. This is what they did to keep the people in check. So number one is fear. What happens when people aren't afraid anymore? When people aren't afraid anymore. When they'll stand up in front of a tank, take out a rock, and they're ready to throw it at the tank. What do they do at that time? Violence, but... The second technique that they use is materialism. Materialism. The dunya. It's opening the doors of dunya. And so what the Mela would do is, as long as you keep materialism happy, like get them their satellite TV, get them their games, make all the entertainment possible for them. How many channels on the satellite TV? You're talking about 15,000 channels that you have, and you're just turning through the channels and so on. It's just, and I say materialism, and it's also the entertainment industry, where the person is just so engrossed in all of that, they're too busy watching TV to do anything with their lives. And so if you go home, for example, and you're very tired, are you able to open up like a tafsir and start reading and so on? Do you guys do that when you're really tired? You open up a tafsir book? No. Are you guys, even when you're not tired, do you open tafsir books? Okay, so when someone's really tired, the reason that they can't do that is because the tafsir will challenge your mind to think. So the thing that will not challenge your mind to think, the thing that makes your brain go blank, that takes no muscles of your brain to work while you partake in this activity, is television. Well, that's why, even when you're tired, you can still watch for hours and hours and hours, because your brain is vegetable at that time. And you're just taking in the programming. Bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. What other programming, propaganda, grasshoppers do you have for me? Oh yeah? Oh yeah? What else? What else? Oh, you disagree? Talk back at so-and-so at CNN.com, right? As if you have any say in any matter. And then, okay, we're going too much on this grasshopper thing. The third one, misconceptions. So people, they're not afraid. And you know what? They've actually have the choice to not watch TV. That you have that choice. Did you know that? You have that choice to actually press off. You are empowered. Inshallah ta'ala, I'm empowering you today. You have the choice to shut it off. So you shut off the TV. You are not going to listen to their propaganda. You will not listen to the grasshoppers anymore. What happens to you then? Then they throw misconceptions. What are the grasshoppers doing with the ability? This is actually, subhanAllah, interesting. During the time of like the Depression in the US, when was the TV invented? When was the TV invented? Does anybody know? I don't remember when it was invented, but what that did was give access to the grasshoppers to talk to every single person in the nation at the same time. That's what it did. They can talk to everybody. In the olden days, you'd have to go and give lectures and so on. So very difficult. But now access can be to all of these people. And so I remember one time, I was talking with a non-Muslim, and I was saying to the person, I'm Muslim. And then he was like, oh, are you guys like the religion that allows like suicide bombings and stuff like that? And what did I want to do to that guy? Yeah. But I said, subhanAllah, his reaction, you say Islam, and this is not something that is old. This is something new, right? That people, they automatically associate. Where did they get that misconception association from? Where did they get it from? The media just pump it out. They keep just pushing that. So misconceptions. Now when you give da'wah, as the Prophets, alayhim as-salam, you would say one of the frequent things that they would, that was used against them was the propaganda of labeling. It is taking something and putting a label on it and then just going around saying everybody, hey, look at this crazy person. قَالُوا إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مِنَ الْمُسَحَّرِينَ. They said, you are one of those who does magic, or you have magic placed on you. Or they'll say, كَذَّابٌ أَشَرٌ. They'll say he's a liar. So they stick a label on the person, and then the Prophet says, I'm a prophet from God. Oh, you're the liar that they were talking about? That comes right after this. Now, there's a fourth technique that the Mala use in order to keep people. Now, I said that these are the techniques. How powerful are these techniques? How powerful are they? They work for anybody who's going to listen. I said that their techniques go as deep as the television set. Who doesn't have a television set in their home? You're talking about 99.9% of the people have it. Who has access to putting stuff on that TV? It's not you. And it's not any ants. It's Mala. Who gets access to programming? It's the Mala. They're the grasshoppers who have access to those things. The fear. Who has the ability to strike fear into an entire nation? The grasshoppers. The Mala have that power. It's not in your hands. And just like the Prophets ﷺ before, these techniques were used against them. It will continue to be used throughout, you're talking about through human history. As life is human beings, this is just part and parcel of a human beings, that these techniques will continue to be used. There's a fourth technique, and that is ridiculing and mocking as a technique of propaganda. Ridiculing and mocking is a technique of propaganda. So if, for example, you come home, and let's say, for example, a sister wears hijab, and in a family that doesn't wear hijab, what will they immediately do to her now that she's wearing hijab? What will they do? They will apply one of the Mala techniques. Do you agree? They will either scare her, fear, you better not wear that or we're going to beat you. Or they will apply misconceptions. Don't you know that, this was something invented by the Arab men to suppress the women? Or they will use ridicule. Correct? What kind of, when a woman wears hijab, what do they say? What do they say? What's that? Okay, so that's a good one. They'll say, nobody's going to marry you, which is fear. But then they'll say as well that now you're not pretty anymore. Or there's this misconception that goes around that women who wear hijab are not beautiful. Correct? And so I just need to make this statement here. And for all those brothers who are dumb, who think that for some reason the kuffar women are beautiful and the Muslim women who cover are not beautiful. Let me tell you, I'm going to set the record straight here. Are you guys ready for this? Are you ready? So you forever not be dumb after this, inshallah ta'ala? Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained the hijab to cover a woman's beauty. Right? So a man in his safa, he looks at a woman who's wearing hijab and he says, I don't find her beautiful. Are you dumb? What is the purpose of the hijab? It is to protect the woman's beauty from being publicly displayed. And so if you've come to the conclusion that this woman is not beautiful, all you have proven is that the hijab works, alhamdulillah. And that her beauty is not outside and transparent. And then when you see a non-Muslim woman, for example, who's showing everything out, the person's like, oh, I want to marry her, and then inshallah ta'ala, I'll get her to wear the hijab. And do the opposite, try to work backwards, not following the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to work backwards. What happens if she's dressed up like that? When she comes home, does she become more dressed up? Or does something else happens? It's called metamorphosis. It's like butterfly going backwards, back to the caterpillar. Right, the hairspray comes out, the makeup starts to run, all of that stuff, it changes. And so the person says, but you're not the woman who is outside. And the beautiful thing for all of those brothers who are saying, they marry a Muslim woman, and maybe there's not this public display of beauty, but the opposite happens. The caterpillar becomes a butterfly. And this beauty is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it, protected it, and it's for the family. This is the beauty inside the family. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to protect the Muslim woman. This is the issue of the mala, and I spent a lot of time upon them. And I wish, inshallah ta'ala, that you will understand this concept, so that in the future, you will start making this distinction. Is this person grasshopper, or is this person ant? Right? Is this mala, or is this the word for ants that I've been using, the ants. This is my terminology that I just made up right now. The Arabic word is jamhur. Jamhur is the majority of the people. You're talking about the majority of the people in Arabic. Jamhur means like the majority. So you have the mala, which are the aristocrats that run the show, and then you have the jamhur, which is the general people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in one of the verses, قَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِهِ لِلَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا لِمَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ أَتَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ صَالِحًا مُرْسَلٌ مِّن رَّبِّهِ قَالُوا إِنَّا بِمَا أُرْسِلَ بِهِ مُؤْمِنُونَ قَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا إِنَّا بِالَّذِي آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ كَافِرُونَ. In this verse, and I wanted to bring to you this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَالَ الْمَلَأ, that the mala, الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, those who are arrogant. Okay, their arrogance is something they put in the ingredient of arrogance. They're aristocrats, they're the grasshoppers, they put in this arrogance, and they said to لِلَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا, to those who are weak, لِمَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ, because even the weak people, we're not saying that the weak people, all of them believe, they've got their issues as well, but they're just different issues, right? لِلَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا لِمَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ, to those who believed amongst the weak. أَتَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ صَالِحًا مُرْسَلٌ مِّن رَّبِّهِ, do you know that Salih is sent from his Lord? And the weak people in the community, قَالُوا إِنَّا بِمَا أُرْسِلَ بِهِ مُؤْمِنُونَ, they said that what we have believed in what Salih has brought. قَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, those who disbelieved, those who had kibr and were arrogant. And when you see in the Quran, this is kind of like a deep point, but when you see the word الَّذِينَ, it means that the statement that's about to come after is coming from this characteristic of kufr, or coming from this characteristic of kibr. So it's not that they believe in it, it's because of their arrogance that they're making the following statement. They said, قَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, it doesn't say قَالَ الْمُسْتَكْبِرُونَ, it says قَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا إِنَّا بِالَّذِي آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ كَافِرُونَ. They said that we disbelieve in what you have believed in. You will see that when all else fails, when they are not able to scare the people, when they're not able to use misconception of the law, they turn to violence. They turn to violence. They say, there's something interesting, kind of like an upbringing, in all these mystery type of novels and shows and so on and so forth. They'll say, whenever someone is killed, follow the money. Follow the money and it will lead you to the killer. So all throughout they're like, okay, who got the insurance, the insurance from this person, where did the money go? And then they'll find someone who has a motive for killing the person. When the people believe in the prophets, where does the money go, you could say? And where does the control and influence go? It goes to Allah and His Messenger. And so, according to the Mala, it's going to leave them. This is what they believe. That if the people believed in Salih, if the people believed in the messengers, it will leave, the money and influence and power will leave them. So what they do is they kill the prophets. That's what they do. Because it's an issue of money and influence. That in order to maintain position, in order to stay as a grasshopper, they have to kill the prophets. And so you will see prophet after prophet after prophet. Either they attempted to kill the prophets, or indeed they killed the prophets, or they had the intention. And you can go from Yahya alayhi salam, Zakaria alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam. You had Musa alayhi salam when Fir'aun came to him, Salih alayhi salam, as we saw here, that they were going to kill him and his family. You had Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How many times did they try to kill the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And not only Quraysh in the Battle of Badr, Battle of Uhud, Battle of Al-Ahzab, you had the Yahud who were in Medina, who on 3 occasions tried to kill the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam as well. And so this is what they resort to when nothing else works, and they can't hold, and they're losing grip of control. Then they follow the money and lead it to the killing of the messengers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they plotted. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَكَرُوا مَكْرًا, that they plotted a plot. So when these kuffar, when the people of Thaamud, when they were plotting to kill the camel, it wasn't some passing idea that they had. It wasn't some fleeting idea. They say, hey, let's go kill the camel. Okay, let's do it. They're plotting it. And even the killing of Salih alayhi salam, they're plotting and planning this killing. And so it is a plot. It's like think tanks sitting together. How can we kill Salih? How can we kill this camel, and so on? And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَمَكَرْنَا مَكْرًا, and we planned a plot as well. That Allah Azza wa Jalla is planning something. Now what's the difference between their plot and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan? Number one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what they're planning. Correct? That they're planning, but it's not in hidden. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows exactly what they're planning to do. And so you'll see even Jibreel alayhi salam would come to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi salam and say that they're planning such and such, go tonight. They're planning to do this, go. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu alayhi salam what is the plot, and this is the power of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And so someone turn, when you start feeling like, what can we do? They're planning, they got all this money with you. There's a power above all power that they have. Any power that they have, there's a power above all of that. It's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the plotting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the plans of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is there. And so the person, they place their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they do the commandments of Allah Azza wa Jal as Allah Azza wa Jal teaches. The people of Thaamud were sent guidance, but they disbelieved in the guidance. And so one of the things that we learn is that it is possible for people to receive the da'wah yet close their eyes to the da'wah. And so understanding that just because you're doing da'wah to someone and they're not listening, or they're not becoming Muslim, or so on and so forth, doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. The main thing that you're going to be questioned about, and a lot of people ask this question, they'll say something like, oh, I have a brother who's, he's got a girlfriend now, and he's misguided and he's not coming. How do I turn him back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do I flip his heart? And someone will say, oh, you know what, we're such a good family, and we all read Quran and so on and so, but we have this daughter, she's like she's the rebel of the family. She does all this haram thing, she doesn't come home at night, should we kick her out, should we let her in? How can we flip her heart? Can a human being flip someone else's heart? And the answer is no. And so guidance, what you have in your power, is the ability to show people the way. That is what is in your ability, to show people the way. After that, whether they actually take that path or not, is not actually a sign of whether you did your job or not. Your job is to give the messages. You see these prophets, some of them are coming with only a few people, even though they gave da'wah for hundreds of years. On the day of resurrection, they're only going to have a few people with them. Does that mean that they didn't do their message that Allah commanded them with? And of course not. They did the message and they fulfilled what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala required of them, and that is they gave the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're on, let's say, the subway, or you're on a train, or you're on, let's say here in Ottawa, you're on a bus, okay? And you're sitting beside someone. You're a little talk about Islam and so on and so on. You're thinking to yourself, should I invite them to Islam? And then shaitan comes into your mind and says, no, don't call them to Islam, because if you call them, then they're not going to become Muslim. So don't even bother. How many people have heard that before? Raise your hand if you've heard that. Don't bother. They wouldn't become Muslim if you tried that. Okay? And if you haven't raised your hand, do more da'wah, inshallah. Okay, make it a commitment to actually follow the footsteps of the Prophet and call to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Why shaitan would say this, saying that, oh, don't bother, if you did that, they wouldn't become Muslim anyway. You respond to shaitan and you say in your mind, well, welcome shaitan. You're not saying welcome, but like you recognize that shaitan's giving you an excuse, a very brilliant excuse, but you say, but alhamdulillah, I was at this Paris Nation lecture, Muhammed shareef, and I learned that the mission of the prophets, of which I'm following the footsteps, is al-balagh, which is to pass on the message. It is not in my hands to flip the hearts of the person that I'm talking to. So they'll say to the sister, they're like, why do you wear that thing on your head? And the sister says in response, in order to understand why I wear this thing on my head called the hijab, you really need to understand Islam. Do you got 5 minutes? Can I explain Islam to you? The guy's like, sure, I'd love to hear about it. So now notice there's some critical. Now for anybody who's working in da'wah, you have to understand what just took place right there. This person has a misconception. The grasshoppers got to this person. They're running around wondering why Muslim women cover their heads, and even though it's snowing and they're covering their heads too. But they're wondering why she's covering her head. So he says, why do you cover this? The typical da'i will respond by saying, well, hijab is, and they'll start going in this direction. At the end of the bus ride, what happens to this guy? We're like, thank you for sharing. And he leaves. What happened there? She gets to go to her sister friends and tell them, oh, I was talking to this guy on the bus and he was asking about hijab and I told him what hijab was. Okay, whoopee. You told him what hijab was. Okay, now what happened? What happened to this person? Nothing. So he got a little enlightenment of why a woman covers her hair. Okay, now, did you tell him to worship Allah? The answer is no. Did you tell him what Islam was about? No. Let's say, best case scenario, that this person actually agreed that the hijab is something marvelous. Will that save the person from hellfire? The answer is no. So when a person asks a question, why do you women wear hijab? And the woman responds by, well, hijab is such and such and such and such. The ultimate end, basically what's happening is, this guy is in the driver's seat, this sister is in the passenger seat, like in Saudi Arabia, for example. She's in the passenger seat, she's not driving, and he's taking her for a ride. And at the end of the ride, he'll ask her to step out. He's in charge. So what I told you to say, this is the response. So someone says, why do you wear hijab? And you're basically saying, may I have the keys to the car, please? Sister takes the keys and says, in order to understand why I'm covering my hair, you need to understand Islam. Do you got 5 minutes? And he says, yes. Of course, he's going to say, no, I don't have time, I got to go. If he was, let him go. But at that point, the sister starts driving and that man gets into the passenger seat. Bunya al-Islamu ala khams. Shahadati Allah ilaha illallah. You just go through, what is Islam? And the person's like, that's amazing. I didn't know that. You worship only one God? I love that. I only believe in one God. And now you're on a mission and he doesn't even care about your hijab if you didn't know. He didn't wake up this morning thinking, why are you wearing hijab? He's just asking because it's a conversation thing. He doesn't care. And if he did care, it's not like the biggest issue in his life. And so once you've explained the issue of Islam, then you explain, well, why am I wearing hijab based on my belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger? After the sister has done that, then she concludes by saying, how would you like to become Muslim? People are like, oh, won't that scare him away? What if he doesn't become Muslim? Again, you say, Shaitan, thank you, please sit back. We're doing A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem. Invite the person. How would you like to become Muslim? And the person will start smiling because they're flattered that you asked. If you tried doing this before, you've done da'wah, they will be flattered. And they will say something like, I'd love to become Muslim. Thank you for offering. How do I become Muslim? And you're like, Alhamdulillah. Who flipped the heart? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala flipped the heart. Not you, but you just put in your effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes the hearts. When someone comes up, there's after salah, right? And they're like, brothers, sisters, we have a shahada. We have a shahada. There's a testification that's about to happen. Someone's going to come up and say their shahada. So brother comes up, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasul. They say their shahada. Brother, how did you become Muslim? And this brother, I was walking in the park. Right? I'm walking in the park. And I saw a Muslim woman wearing hijab, and I went up to her and I said, how do I become Muslim? Okay, that's one scenario. Brother, how did you become Muslim? Well, I was in the library, and I was going through the section so and so, and I saw this book. It said, Towards Understanding Islam. And the author passed away, but subhanAllah, he's still doing da'wah till today. And I took the book, and I the number one da'i, the phone book. I looked up the masjid and I went to the Muslims and I said, hey, how do I become Muslim? A third person, how did you become Muslim? I was so messed up in my life. This is Sheikh Riyadh was mentioning. This is in California. He said, I was so messed up in my life that this person is about to commit suicide. And he said, right before he's about to commit suicide, he said, God, guide me to the truth. And so he stepped out of his home, he saw a bird, and he said that this bird, is creation from God. I'm going to follow this bird wherever it goes. So he followed the bird. Bird went from tree to tree to tree. And then it went and landed on the masjid. He saw this beautiful masjid and he said, there must be something inside here. He went inside the masjid and he told the people, he saw they're so peaceful, they're praying and so on. He's like, I want to become Muslim. Brother, how did you hear about Islam? A little birdie told me about it. Now these stories, does it make you happy or does it make you sad? It makes me sad. Because if we're not going to give da'wah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring someone else. Bring a book in a library, or bring the yellow pages, or bring people walking in the street. But Muslims are always close-lipped. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So I'm not saying that I'm any different. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. All it takes is for just someone to just step out of the comfort zone. And just someone says, well, why are you wearing that hijab? And then you say, well, do you have 5 minutes? Let me explain Islam to you so you can understand why I'm wearing hijab. Sure, please tell me. You take control, invite the person to become Muslim. They say, no, I would never become Muslim. كَذَّبَتْ ثَامُودُ وَعَادٌ. You've passed the message, and if they've disbelieved, you're not the first person to disbelieve. You're not the first person to say that this statement is a lie. And you're in good company. You're in the company of the prophets. Inshallah ta'ala, you're following their footsteps. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ فَاسْتَحَبُّوا الْعَمَى عَلَى الْهُدَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and as for Thamud, فَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ. So we guided them. Was Thamud guided? And the answer is yes, because Salih was sent to them and told them the message. وَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ فَاسْتَحَبُّوا الْعَمَى عَلَى الْهُدَى. And so they loved and preferred blindness over guidance. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the opposite of the guidance is ama. It is blindness. They close their eyes, they close their heart, they close their ears, everything is shut down, all the faculties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to them, they close it. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we have to realize that when Allah Azza wa Jal sends these signs and these destructions of these nations, a lot of people go and visit these places as a form of tourism. And I think we mentioned that a little bit about Ad, but specifically about Thamud. The Prophet ﷺ was once passing through Mada'in Salih in that area. And the Prophet ﷺ, they camped. And then the Prophet ﷺ asked them what area this was. And they said, this is like the place of Thamud. the dwellings of Thaamud. And so the Prophet ﷺ told the companions radiallahu anhum to get up, and they actually there were some wells there that had water, and the Prophet ﷺ told them to dump it. And they left that area, and the Prophet ﷺ, different statements, the Prophet ﷺ said that a person should never enter these areas except in a state of crying. Except in a state of crying. Because this is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed a nation. And so the Prophet ﷺ, another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, he told this to the companions, why he made them dump the water, why he made them leave. He said, إِنِّي أَخْشَى أَن يُصِيبَكُمْ مِثْلَ مَا أَصَابَهُمْ فَلَا تَدْخُلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ. He said, I fear that what happened to them will happen to you. When you enter these dwellings, and if it's not in a state of crying, that there's a fear that this person is taking the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala almost like mockery. They're like, oh wow, cool, look at these things in the mountain. This is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the people. He annihilated them and made them an example to the day of judgment. And so the person is crying, looking at their own sins, looking at their own transgression against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When these signs come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, realize that they are not there for someone just to be, like Discovery Channel. Everybody who says that TV is excellent because of Discovery Channel. Because of Discovery Channel, they discover many other things. Okay, but what is on Discovery Channel? Oh, we get to see lightning shows, like the lightning bolts. When there's a lightning storm, you're inside a building, so you don't get scared, right? There's like, oh, cool. The whole city is lit up with a lightning bolt. You're like, wow, that's so cool. SubhanAllah, this is like so cool. Is that the reaction that a believer should have? Or when they see the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what should come on their hearts? They should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they should recognize the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that this power of Allah azza wa jal can easily be turned and destroy the people. There was one time where because a lot of these lightning storms, they happen and you're inside a building. There was one time I was on an open soccer field, football field. And I said, it's Maghrib time and I need to pray Maghrib and so on. So I said, I'll pray on this open field. But there was a lightning storm coming behind me. And you know what they say when there's a lightning storm, like get down on the ground or something. Don't be the tallest thing in an open field. I was the tallest thing in the open field. Okay, and there's a lightning storm right behind me. I said, how quickly can it cover the sky? Like inshallah ta'ala, just pray Maghrib and then I'll go. And subhanAllah, those black clouds came. I think I was at 1 rak'ah and a half. And I was covered by all the black clouds. Meaning just in those few moments, the clouds covered the whole sky. All black, and I could hear the lightning bolts, and I'm not under shelter. And subhanAllah, I was like, should I break my salah, go pray in the car or something like that? Because when you see lightning, a lot of the lightning that you hear is because it's outside of the city. But when there's a lightning bolt that strikes right above you, you get a little glimpse of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at up front row seats of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you start to be a little bit more afraid. These things, just a few days ago, there was an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. What do people do when they see a lunar eclipse? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect. They're like, oh cool, look, a lunar eclipse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away the light of the moon. And everybody's like, oh, they're out on some cruise looking at the moon and with their binoculars and so on, saying, oh, isn't this interesting? Instead of taking heed that the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do this has the power to destroy us or to bring us to prosperity, depending on how we are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His gifts or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا مُرْسِلُ النَّاقَةِ فِتْنَةً لَهُمْ فَارْتَقِبْهُمْ وَاصْطَبِرْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows Thaamud is going to disbelieve in the naqa. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Azza sent them the naqa, the she-camel, naqatullah, as a test against Thaamud. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to Salih alayhi salam that we're sending this naqa fitnatan lahum. It's going to be a fitna, it's going to be a test for them. فَارْتَقِبْهُمْ. So watch what they're going to do. They said that if we see a sign, then we're going to believe. And when they saw the sign, they disbelieved. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاسْطَبِرْ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say, وَاصْبِرْ. He said, وَاسْطَبِرْ. And we spoke in the other dars about the shadda, right? كَذَّبَ. كَذَّبَ. The intensity of claiming this to be a lie. And this وَاسْطَبِرْ means that Salih alayhi salam is going to not only be patient with, they have to insist on being patient, because this is a long journey and there's a lot of effort that's going to be needed in this journey. And so it's not just sabr that the person needs, it needs the wastabir. The person has to, when that sabr runs out, they got to put more in sabr in. Go and refuel with their sabr. In conclusion, inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to tell you the story about Abu Raghal. Abu Raghal. Abu Raghal, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the people of Thaamud, it is said that Abu Raghal was a person from the people of Thaamud, and he's buried outside of Mecca. And there's different stories of his grave, because the Arabs stoned his grave. Like any Arab, even when I was reading about Abu Raghal, I just felt like, I wonder where his grave is so I can go and stone it. Like throughout time, the Arabs have always hated this person. It is said that Abu Raghal was from the people of Thaamud, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the people of Thaamud, that he was actually in the Kaaba Haram area. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't send his punishment down inside the Haram area. When he stepped out of the Haram area, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed him. And he was buried outside of the Haram area, and the Arabs forever stoned him. That's Abu Raghal. There's actually another story. There's a couple of stories about him. His grave, why do people stone him? And this is the one that you probably heard before. Abu Raghal, when Abraha and Yaqut al-Hamawi, rahimahullah, was a great scholar of Islam, and he explained Abu Raghal, he said out of the different stories about Abu Raghal, this is the one that's the most accurate. Abu Raghal is the person who, when Abraha came with the elephant, he didn't know where the Kaaba was. And so he'd destroy this tribe. None of the tribe would sell it out and say, hey, let me show you where the Kaaba is so you can destroy it. No Arab would do that. And so Abraha found this person, Abu Raghal. He hooked up with Abraha and he says, I'll show you where the Kaaba is. What do we call this type of person? A sellout. We call him a sellout. Do you guys know what a sellout is? A person comes on TV, oh kuffar, let me tell you about the Muslims. And then they're like, the Muslims do this, the Muslims do that, the Muslims do this. And you're familiar with this, correct? People come on TV and like they're condemning the Muslims. They're saying that they're Muslim, and then they're condemning other Muslims on TV. They're like this, you kuffar should be afraid, fear, I agree with you because all Muslims are dumb and crazy and all of this. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be Muslim? They're like, yeah, well, I'm this type of Muslim. It's good if the recording cuts off this time, right? Okay, so Abu Raghal, he sold out, and he showed Abraha where the Kaaba was, and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed Abraha, Abu Raghal was destroyed as well. And so he was forever known. The Arabs always said, this is a person who sold out. He sold out and showed him where the Kaaba was for all time, because he was seeking honor and nobility through teaming up with Abraha. Abraha is the one with the elephant. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Because he sold out his people to join forces with the kuffar, that forever he will be humiliated. And it's interesting that when Muslims do this, when they go out and they say, oh, you know what, Muslims are like this, this and that, the communities just totally cut them off, correct? And this person is always known as the person who sold out. They're always known by that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive them. Hopefully they'll do tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jal, but they always have this with them, that they will always be like that. 2 minutes left. Okay, the 2 minute warning, inshallah ta'ala. Everybody's like, alhamdulillah, only 2 minutes left. All right, what would have saved Thaamud? What would have saved Thaamud as a lesson for all of us? What would save us? We said, أَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. Worship Allah Azza wa Jal. So the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the pillars of Islam, the commandments of Allah, staying away from the forbiddens, will protect you and save you. Secondly is istighfar, is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. As Salih alayhi salam said to his people, لِمَ تَسْتَعْجِلُونَ بِالسَّيِّئَةِ قَبْلَ الْحَسَنَةِ لَوْلَا تَسْتَغْفِرُونَ اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. He said, if only you asked Allah forgiveness so that you would receive the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if a person does that, if they seek the forgiveness of Allah azza wa jal, they're worshipping Allah, and when they disobey Allah, they ask for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would show them His mercy. And the last but not least is thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessings. When you turn in thankfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, thank you for Fajr, thank you for Dhuhr, thank you for Asr, thank you for Maghrib, thank you for Isha, thank you for allowing me to be a Muslim. Alhamdulillah, alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana Muslim. All of these things, your whole life is a life of hamd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is your savior and protection. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alright, so we're done inshallah ta'ala for tonight. Next week, inshallah ta'ala, we will be doing Qawmi Lut, the people of Lut. These lectures, as you can see, it's being video recorded. It's going to be on online. So if you have a friend or some family members who didn't see it, inshallah ta'ala, they can benefit from it. If you go, this is the website. If you want to write down the website, and even if you're not going to these videos, but you can, other stuff that I have, inshallah ta'ala, the website is called successinislam.com. The website is successinislam.com. Success, SUCCESS. Islam, ISLAM.com. Inshallah ta'ala, there's a mailing list. Join the mailing list. You'll get the videos, inshallah ta'ala, and many, many other things. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.